Hello and welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode number 359, and this is another edition of Muslims Behaving Badly, Part 2. Should have also subtitled this, and they're stupid non-Muslim enablers, apologists, and useful idiots. And anyway, we're going to start here in Australia, where this is Enam Hamid, and her husband were arrested earlier in the year for abusing their daughter. Because she refused to marry her first cousin. Apparently, she was chained to a wall when found and had been beaten by a garden hose. However, the judge released the wife because the daughter agreed that she would not enter the family home from here on out. So nothing to see here, just move along. Also in Australia, so several years during the heyday of the ISIS takeover in Syria and Iraq, many Australians left to fight for the ISIS cause, and their dutiful wives followed their husbands. Well, since most of the husbands have been incinerated or captured, and after the wives were passed around among survivors or had their clits cut off, they ended up in a detention center, and now they're finding out that the detention centers aren't so nice. So they want to come home. And guess what? 14 women and their children are going to be admitted back into the country and welcomed with open arms. Man, that's Australia for you. This Algerian cleric named Ahmed Brahimi, he asserted on Al Jazeera that Jews are trying to destroy the world through gay marriage and women's rights. This fine cleric has also been sanctioned by the United States for his support of terrorism. Former Egyptian foreign minister went on television and says that Israel should be isolated politically, militarily, and all around just isolated. In fact, he says that no Israeli should be allowed in any hotel or restaurant throughout the world. That means no Jews in hotels or restaurants throughout the world. That's some open-hearted people there. Okay, in the African country of Mali, Muslim insurgents managed to set 40 tanker trucks of fuel oil on fire as part of their blockade that they established to block all energy coming into the country until their demands were met, which I would assume they become a Muslim country. Officials report that at its current rate, Mali the entire country has only 2 weeks of fuel left. A Boko Haram group in Nigeria attacked a forward military base there. Several soldiers were killed and a 9-year-old child. Several cars were burnt. Nigerian forces say that airstrikes took out some 30-plus insurgents as they tried to flee, but we are talking about Nigeria, so they could just be blowing shit out their ass. 43 people became incinerated after a drone attacked a mosque in Sudan. It's believed to be caused by the Rapid Support Forces, who are also a Muslim group. So this is a case of Muslim on Muslim violence. British tourists managed to release some video of a boat from North Africa carrying some migrants that recently landed at a Spanish resort city where they were vacationing. After getting off the boat, they ran through the hotel area into the courtyard where a fight broke out and one of the migrants was killed. They then fled into the city, but not before a handler handed out money and some cell phones. 47-year-old Afghan migrant in Belgium was arrested after he killed 3 people. A few days earlier, he had been convicted of domestic abuse. So he took a knife and killed his wife, a family friend, and I guess one other person randomly for shits and giggles. Yeah, they let in only the best and brightest in Europe. Because in Scotland, this Muslim from North Africa stabbed 6 people. He's been living in the country at a hotel put up for by the government since 2020. Now an inquiry, He was shot and killed by the police, by the way, when they responded. Now an inquiry has been opened into, at the request of his family, saying that the police did not have to use deadly force. He stabbed 6 people. He had a knife in his hand when the cops arrived. Jesus Christ. Come on now. A Moroccan-born Spanish citizen in France was recently charged with the rape of a 17-year-old. At the time, he was 29. He got her drunk and made her perform oral sex on him. She later attempted suicide. Yeah, I guess that would happen. Okay, Mahmoud C. And they always give the last initial in Europe, but Mahmoud C. in France was convicted again of raping a 16-year-old Chinese prostitute. He was released after 11. Well, he was released, but 11 years ago, he had also raped 4 other Chinese prostitutes in France. He now claims that he is addicted to sex and he just missed his family in Mali. I think he was caught in the act when the prostitute screamed and the police arrived and he had his fingers up her vagina. Guess he missed fingering his wife. Okay, this young lady is named Philippine and she's from France and she was raped and murdered a few years ago. Now the family is speaking out and blaming politicians and the powers that be in France for allowing the conditions because her attacker was under a deportation order at the time but never deported. Guess what he was being deported for? Rape. So they just let the rapists back out to be rapists. Happened once, it's going to happen again. They're horny. All right, and speaking of which, an Iraqi has been arrested in Dresden, Germany, and he's accused of groping women and children on trains and at public pools. He's considered a serial groper. They know this because he's been arrested for groping before, but the courts just let him out, saying they can't hold him. By the way, he's seeking asylum in Sweden, and he makes a lot. Officials notice that he makes a lot of trips to Germany, and now we know why. He likes to grope German women and girls. All right, so a Muslim hairdresser in Germany offers a 40% discount on Wednesdays for any woman who comes in who wants her hair done. All right, no problem. So a non-Muslim went in and was charged full price. She didn't get the 40% discount, and it was a Wednesday. So she filed a discrimination complaint against the hairdresser. The officials came back and says, well, no, it's not discrimination because obviously the 40% discount applies to a certain clientele and you're not part of that clientele. Now imagine if this was done in reverse. I mean, a Christian says, nope, I'm sorry, I'm only going to give a 40% discount to fellow Christians, and you Muslims and Jews, tough shit, pay the full price. There would be riots in the street. All right, this dude here, he's a cleric from Great Britain, a Muslim cleric, and he says that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by the Israelis. He says they're really good at killing people, and he brought up the fact, which I thought was really ingenious, of how pagers were set off in the hands and pockets of Hezbollah agents. But also he says that 9/11 and even the assassination of John F. Kennedy way back there in 1963 was at the instigation of the Israelis. And there also is Hamza Zortzis, also a cleric in Great Britain. He says that Charlie Kirk was a pro-genocidal propagandist for Israel. So if he's a propagandist for Israel, then why would Israel want them killed, as the other guy said? In fact, he says Charlie Kirk was actually Joseph Goebbels, or like Joseph Goebbels. ISIS, yes, they still exist out there. They're calling on Muslim youth in Great Britain to attack as many Jews and Christians at gatherings and kill as many as you can. Most of these messages are going out on social media. They're supposed to do this to show their support for the Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Of course, they say it's always about the genocide. Local residents are fighting the construction of a mosque in England, which they describe as grotesque and takes away from the beautiful landscape. The mosque was approved in 2020 by county officials during the COVID lockdown, so there was really no public comment at that time. They're now legally challenging that decision by the council. Samir Mohammed of Great Britain, a 17-year-old, grabbed a female from a club and raped her while repeatedly saying, I love you, which begs the question, first of all, what was a Muslim doing in a nightclub that served alcohol? And secondly, what was a 17-year-old Muslim doing in a bar or nightclub that served alcohol? By the way, the rape victim was of age in England. I don't know what their age of drinking is, but a Muslim should not have been in a bar. Okay, this is Musa Qadri, and he will get no jail time for an attack on a protester. The protester, this is being mischaracterized. They says that he burnt the Quran outside the Turkish embassy in London. Actually, he burnt passages from the Quran and in front of the Turkish embassy in London. And this guy, Musa Qadri, came out and confronted him, being a good Muslim, and then went back in and came out with a knife and lunged at him, and apparently chased after the guy who burnt the Quran packages and kicked him and spit on him when he was on the ground. Anyway, a court says, nope, jail time. Yeah, you attacked him with a knife. It's a shame. We got a lot of knife violence over here in England, but even though you attacked him with a knife, we'll accept your explanation that you were only defending your religion. Now again, let's look at that in reverse. What if somebody was defending Christianity? Okay, a video from April is just making the rounds about some useful idiots in Dearborn, Michigan, here in the United States, who were, it's called the Al-Quds Day celebration. It's supposed to be in support of Palestinians or whatever. And they were caught, and there are a lot of Americans there. They were not all Palestinians or of Palestinian descent. And I really hate using the term Palestinian. But anyway, they were out there yelling, death to America, death to Israel. So there's some fine Americans for you. A gunman in New Hampshire managed to kill one person at a country club while yelling, now the children are safe and free Palestine. That's pretty lame terrorist attack there. Mohammed Abu Zaid was in New York City, whereupon he ran over and killed a German tourist who was on vacation with her husband to celebrate their 23rd wedding anniversary. We later found out that Mr. Abu Zaid has no driver's license and slept in his car. The woman was almost decapitated, and the husband, although he survived, had to have a finger reattached. Now we found out that Mr. Mohammed Abu Zaid was possibly in the country illegally. That's the United States. Muslims are mortified, I tell you, shocked to know that Zohran Mamdani, that communist running for mayor up in New York City, wants to legalize prostitution in the city. That's right. That ought to sit well with the Muslim community. You know, in some countries, you can be stoned to death for prostitution. Activists in Seattle are calling on students to walk out on October 7th, 2025, the 2-year anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel, the largest single day, is since the Holocaust. Over 2,100 people were killed and 250 hostages taken, many of them dead, some of them raped, some of them gang raped. But let's go out there and celebrate them. Let's go out there and show our support, Seattle. This cleric in Afghanistan has issued a fatwa to wage jihad against Pakistan. The reason is Pakistan is allegedly run or influenced by Jews and Christians. Basically what the Afghani cleric is saying is that Pakistan is not Stone Age enough. because Afghan's education minister has ordered the removal of all references to evolution or Charles Darwin in any textbook in any school, no matter that level of school. Not just Islam. Well, they all are Islamic schools, but get rid of them. Speaking of which, in Afghanistan, at least 24 schools designated for girls in several provinces in that Stone Age country have been shuttered by the Taliban, and they have now become jihadi madrasas, where you learn to go out there and wage jihad. Obviously, males. Okay, on September 17th, the Taliban detained a man, and he has just recently been returned to his family. The family suspects he was tortured. The reason being, he was returned to the family with no left eye. I mean, he went missing when he had two eyes. Now he only has one right eye. I would say torture played a role in his killing. A Muslim cleric at a school, a madrasa in India, was recently arrested. He had nude photos and videos on his cell phone where he would entrap Bengali girls to, I guess, strip naked and do things on camera. And he would then use those to extort money from them. So he's been arrested for sextortion, it's called. Elsewhere in India, a Muslim mob attacked a celebration in a town after an alleged slur on social media about something toward Muhammad or Islam. 1,000 Muslims battled with police and committed several acts of vandalism, specifically against non-Muslim stores. All the Muslim stores withstood vandalism attacks. It took several arrests to put the melee under control. A woman in Indonesia was recently sentenced to 40 lashes in public with a rattan cane after she was found guilty by a Sharia court for adultery. Now, Sharia law only applies in one province, which is sort of semi-autonomous. They received that autonomy in 2005. I guess she's luckier than the two gays who had to undergo 100 lashes in public. They were caught, giving each other a blowjob in a bathroom in Indonesia, in that area of Indonesia. And one of the gays passed out and had to be carried out. Human rights organizations are saying that over 3,000 people have been executed in Iran for morality offenses in the past 3 years. Now, about half of them are for drug offenses, but also violation of the female dress codes and protesting against those dress codes. So they don't mess around over there with their morality. In Iran, a couple from Afghanistan have been executed, and there are 3 kids deported back to Afghanistan. They're accused of bringing drugs into the country. And speaking of which, this former Iranian member of parliament, and he says that Iran should have never stopped exporting illegal drugs to Europe. The role of the drugs in Iran is to keep them out, stop people from bringing them into the country, but there's no problem under his interpretation of Islamic law of exporting them to other countries. He says this against the background of the Trump administration blowing drug smugglers out of the Caribbean emanating from Venezuela and elsewhere. This 45-year-old man shown here has been sentenced to 8 years in a Iranian prison, which chances are he's not making it out. His offense is he was a Christian. He looked at some Christian website and apparently did so in Turkey also, and they found out about it. Now, technically, Christianity is recognized in Iran as a minority religion, but this guy was Muslim and he converted to Christianity, so that's why he got the 8 years. I guess if you're grandfathered in as a Christian, you're okay, but if you convert to Christianity, 8 years in jail. UNICEF and others are reporting an attack on a humanitarian aid convoy headed for Gaza. The perpetrators were Hamas, who stole something like 2 truckloads of baby formula. Right now, 2,700 babies are without formula in Gaza City, thanks to Hamas. I'm sure they'll sell it at a discount. Yeah, right. Okay, the little Swedish retard, Greta Thunberg, she's leading yet another flotilla to Gaza. But she's been canned from their steering committee, and they actually kicked her off one boat, and like the flagship boat, and put her on another boat, less important one. So she's been knocked down a peg, and the reason may be because several of those leadership of that flotilla are a little pissed off about lesbian and gay and transgender activists being part of the flotilla. But at least we know what Thunberg's next cause du jour is after Gaza. Is going to be transgender rights. I guarantee you. I mean, she's like, she looks like Prince Valiant, so she's like partially there. Okay, in Malaysia, a lot of women who are divorced, you can't get divorced under Sharia law, are foregoing child support. They're not pursuing it from the deadbeat husbands because it's this two-step process in Sharia law. You can get the divorce. Now, as for child support, it's a separate thing, civil thing that has to be, and it costs money to do that. So it's actually cheaper to forego the child support. So deadbeat dads, you want to be a deadbeat dad, go to Malaysia. A bomb was detonated at a taxi stand in Pakistan in a city on the border with Afghanistan. 6 people were killed. There's been no claim. Nobody has claimed responsibility for the attack. My guess is that it's on some Taliban jihadis. And in a southern province of Pakistan, officials report that there's a 43% rise in the number of honor killings. Honor killings are usually committed because some offense brings shame upon the family. The most common being that the daughter doesn't want to enter into the prearranged marriage with their first cousin or whatever, which might explain why there's a lot of Muslim people with genetic abnormalities or on the spectrum and stuff like that. I work in education, I've seen it. Something mattered there. And finally, a Houthi missile was brought down in Medina, the second holiest city in Islam. In fact, it was brought down near the Prophet's Mosque. It's believed the missile was intended for Israel, but questions remain about that because the Houthis have attacked cities in Saudi Arabia with drones and with missiles in the past. This would be kind of interesting if they're targeting the second holiest city in Islam. But anyway, that's it for today. Have a great day and a more pleasant tomorrow.